We're swapping sides today. I don't know why, but we are. I want to be on this side. I'm gonna be on this side from now on. Maybe. Anyway, hi, what's up? It's me. Today I'm here to give you the second last video in my series wrapping up 2018 in terms of reading and booktube. Even though I didn't do much, I have a hair tie on my wrist. Of course I have a hair tie on my wrist. I always have a hair tie on my wrist. Anyway, what was I talking about? 2018. I think I've seen some other people do this around and I thought that I would join in on the fun by delivering to you guys basically like a big wrap-up extravaganza of all the books that I've read and like some stats on them. So as you all know, my Goodreads goal for last year in terms of reading was to read 36 books, and I came very close to finishing that goal, and I actually read 31 books last year. So that's my stat number one. Stat number one is that I read 31 books last year. 6 of them were 5-star reads, which that was pretty impressive. I thought I had a lower number of 5-star reads last year than I apparently did, so that was nice to see. 15 of them were 4-star reads, which is obviously my most popular category, and the reason for that is that a book that I give a 4.5-star rating on Goodreads will say that I have a 4-star rating for it. So I think that's why most of my books therefore are in the 4-star rating category, is because any books that have a 4.5-star rating are also being lumped into that category right there. And I did give a lot of books 4.5-star ratings because I was like, not quite 5-star, but still good. 5 of those books had 3-star ratings and 5 of those books had 2-star ratings, which honestly is a little bit disappointing for me. I still kind of rate my books according to that little sort of star algorithm that I've talked about before in a previous video. And also in terms of like emotion, I will rate a book 5 stars if I am absolutely raving about it, 4 stars if I thought it was good, like great good, 3 stars if I enjoyed it but didn't actually think it was that good, and like 2 stars if I actively didn't enjoy it, and 1 star if I thought it was like despicable and should never have been written, which honestly I haven't come across a book like that myself, which is nice. So the fact that I have so many 3 and 2-star books actually means that I read a lot of books that I actually didn't like. Like I've got books there that I actively didn't like a lot and books that I just didn't think were that great. So yeah, like 3 stars kind of feels high when I'm looking at the stats, but then I remind myself that actually those books are ones that I didn't enjoy very much. There they are. Hi, we're hanging out from a closer angle now. Why am I like this? There, better? Onto the genre breakdown, and this is probably going to surprise quite a few people. I read 17 fantasy books, 13 of which were YA fantasy, which honestly surprised me. I read 7 classic books and 7 other books, which included a non-fiction book, a graphic novel, a historical fiction novel, 2 contemporary novels, and a parody, I believe. So not much of anything other than fantasy and classics, which is pretty sad, and a lot of YA fantasy classics, which honestly surprised me because I thought I cut down on that this year, but apparently I didn't. And then I thought it would be interesting to look at the star rating breakdown for these genres. So for adult fantasy, my average star rating was 4.5 stars. Average rating for YA fantasy was 3.5 stars, and that was bumped up a lot because of the fact that Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom and Strange the Dreamer are included in that category, and those books are ones that I did very much love. The rest of them were all rated 2 or 3 stars. My classics rating was 3 stars, which surprised me a little bit. I mean, I didn't read many classics this year at all, and honestly the only book there that was given any kind of high rating was Emma, which was featured on my top reads of the year list. Also in that list, unfortunately, was Wuthering Heights, The Scarlet Letter, and Anna Karenina, all of which I very much didn't enjoy, and 2 of which made it onto my bottom 5 books of the year list. So a very mixed bag as far as classics goes, and also a very small bag, which makes sense because classics are slow reading, and I do tend to kind of do one every couple of months, obviously. It seems that I was unfortunate enough to have chosen some classics that I didn't actually enjoy very much last year, which is a bit disappointing. Also, for my books, 10 of the books that I read this year are books that I read because of BookTube specifically, either because I heard about it in other people's reviews, someone from BookTube specifically told me to read it, or because I read it because of a BookTube book club. 8 of the books that I read this year are because of friends that I see in my day-to-day life here in Melbourne, either because they lent it to me or told me that I very, very much have to read it. And one book in amongst all of that was an impulse buy, which I thought was pretty impressive. Apparently I only impulse bought 1 book last year, probably because of the fact that I had no money to spend on impulse buys. That really helps cut down on your impulse purchasing of books, is not having any money. And then finally, a final little stat that I have here, 8 of the books that I read last year were rereads, which is a pretty dismally high number in my opinion. That being said, that does include rereads of books that I read a long time ago that I haven't even looked at since, and sort of felt that I should try and and reread as an adult to see what they were like, or what my opinion on those books would be as an adult, and that includes books like The Number One Ladies Detective Agency. But unfortunately, that also just includes comfort reads, where I'm like, I don't want to read anything new and scary. I just want to read the same books that I know and love, like Six of Crows. So with this information in mind, I now have some general directions to try and guide myself in for the upcoming year in terms of forcing myself to maybe not read quite so much of the same genre and maybe actually branch out and have a look at new books to read. So, less fantasy. We know that I love fantasy. I'm aware that I love fantasy and I'm allowed to read fantasy books still. Obviously, I'm not going to force myself not to read something that I actively enjoy reading, but I would like to try and branch out more as well. So I'm going to try and read less fantasy. Obviously, one of my goals is already to read more nonfiction, and I've set myself a number of books that I want to try and read nonfiction wise. Also more classics, which is why soon we will be starting up the Keep It Classic book club again, which I'm very excited about, and no rereads allowed, or maybe only a couple. But anyway, that's my breakdown of the books that I read this year and what kinds of books they were. So now you know exactly what kinds of books I read, and I can't sit here and pretend to be some kind of pretentious smarty pants who only reads literary classics and only thinks highly about books and all of that kind of stuff. No, turns out that I am really not. But I knew that. You didn't, but I did. I'm very excited actually to do this again at the end of this coming year. I'm very curious to see if looking at this breakdown is going to impact the choices that I make as I read throughout the year, and whether that means that at the end of the year my reading will have changed in any way. If you have done something similar, let me know, and I will do a watch, and it'll be very exciting because I'm really curious to see what other people's breakdowns are like and whether they were surprised when they looked back at the books that they read for the year like me, or whether they weren't surprised, in which case, go you. I will see you in another video very shortly, I'm sure, and until then, as always, stay classic. Mwah.
Sit there and count your little fingers. Unhappy little girl blue.